This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. Extremely agitated today. What about you, Tim?
Extremely agitated. Not like I have been on other days. I mean, it's extremely fucking hot. So I mean, that's
I'm still in the cool of like 67 degrees in
well,
Boulder.
you beat the heat.
Yeah, at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poets, teaching my workshop under the auspice of Ann Waldman. That's going well.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Very cool, in fact. Yeah, I mean, we have this mayoral election
Election.
today, and we'll see if the heat is a factor. I mean, I think for older people, I think it is a factor. So who are the older people voting for? Who are the younger people voting for? So, and who's the most enthusiastic? Who's going to actually go out there because
Yeah.
they're enthusiastic about it? We're about to see. It's going to
Well,
be
and
interesting.
speaking about not having a say in anything, frickin' Rudolph Giuliani
Oh,
now on Homeland Security detail, thanks to that dumpster fire Trump, who not only has like a 21-year-old douche in charge of American anti-terrorism, but Christie, no, I mean, his whole confederacy of dunces is just getting more ridiculous by the minute. And he
yeah.
can't even stop lying when he's confronted by his own intelligence agents.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
all demolished. I mean, he's such a fool.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
the thing
there's a
is,
ceasefire.
well,
I ended all the wars.
he and well, Netanyahu, frankly, their credibility is really down the tube. So why should anyone consider anything they fucking say? I mean, they're constantly getting caught in lies. So I don't. It's and I was talking with some friends because it's suddenly. I think I was saying it one of the podcasts, maybe the one that's going to go up. But I was preparing myself mentally for maybe some urban blue city martial law riot scenarios this summer. Now the Andy's been up to potential nuclear conflict. Yeah, and that's like, whoa.
Well, there's another protest planned for July 17th, the same as there was the no King's Day. But I got another reason to protest, and I have to say, this is pretty infuriating because that most twatish of the Trumpian brigade, that would be Ivanka and her criminal husband, have just purchased for $1.4 billion one of the only left like unincorporated islands off of Albania. Now, let's just break that down for 1 minute. If they wanted to, and why would they? They'll never go hungry. $1 billion
Yeah.
could feed 4.8 million children for 1 year. Why should they fucking care?
Well, it's, I mean, the corruption is, well, corruption is deep and pretty wide before we get a little too tribal on our asses. For instance, Palantir, which is a
Oh, yeah.
Peter Thiel software tech company that's been major in all these ICE raids and used throughout all this stuff. Here's a list of congressmen and women who sold their stock on it.
Well, and Stephen Miller having a big piece
Well,
of the pie.
Stephen Miller has got the biggest portfolio on that shit, which is just total corruption. But we knew this about that piece of shit. Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, Julie Johnson, Democrat from Texas, James Comer, well, Republican from Kentucky, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican from Georgia, Bragahan from Pennsylvania, Republican, Jill Soneros, Democrat from California, Jefferson Shreve, a Republican from Indiana. Yeah, so it's insider trading as far
It's
as I can
odd.
tell.
It's all got to be. It's just got to be. Oh, did you hear about the? I don't even know what breed of pseudo-religious idiots were like speaking in tongues on the White
Oh, that was so
House lawn the
embarrassing.
other day. I mean, the whole thing has just got to be
It's
turned
it's
around.
really
I'm
embarrassing.
just fed up. I'm sick of it all. It gets more ridiculous every
Well,
day.
we have this like church shooting, which no one really that's like a nothing thing compared to what's going on, I guess. And then and then we kind of like it's day to day. We have these kind of vigilante Minnesota people hunted down by this nutcase. It's yeah, what happened to that?
Yeah, well, as I
I
as I say, the war is never over, and it's right here at home.
Well,
I don't really even have anything more to say on the subject at this point. I don't even really have anything more to say at all today. I'm just fighting back the vomitorium.
yeah, it's God, oh God. So yeah, they've taken the National Guard and Marines, out of LA, and now they're assisting the DEA on these drug busts in the desert.
That's
Yeah,
so stupid.
but of
And the thing is,
marijuana,
and
which
advertising
I
how
thought was
dumb it
legal in
is and how
California.
stupid anybody in charge of Homeland Security is perfect timing for anybody who wants you to actually do something freaking devastating from
I am
within or without.
I'm enjoying some of the infighting spectacles, so that's kind of
That's just pathetic.
yeah, it's all pathetic. But Puff Daddy's trials, I guess they're gonna come to
Anyway, good luck with the voting today in New York.
oh well, yeah. I mean,
I don't know
that's
what else to say. Give people a bottle of water. Thank you. At least ain't
well.
not,
Oh, yeah,
not illegal.
here's something to say before the next podcast. Lydia and I will be performing together on a series of shows.
With Eugene Robinson and
Yes,
Well.
Boonwell. We're gonna do. Let me make sure I get these fucking dates right. Real quickly, I'll plug it.
July 29th. I mean, June 29th.
Sorry, June 29th in Philly, June 30th in Providence, July 1st in New York City, Le Poussin Rouge, July 3rd, Portland, Maine, 4th, Montreal, Quebec, and 5th, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, of course. So
then I'll be going off to San Francisco, LA, and various
oh yes,
spots.
so
But in the meantime, that's what we'll be doing. And I'll see you in a few days, Timothy.
Yes, you will.
Until then, I hope to be in a better fucking mood once I get the taste of Trump twat out of my mouth.
Oh, and we have this week's guest, who's a very interesting writer and friend, David Gordon. And so we're excited to have him on the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and myself, Tim Dahl.
This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. And today we have with us David Gordon, one of the few people I know who was actually born in New York City. He's worked in film, pornography, which he's not ashamed of, publishing 7 books at least, fashion, 7 published novels, book of stories, original audiobook, a comic spy novel read by David Hasselhoff. We'll get into that in a minute. And has a new neo-noir novel called Behind Sunset coming out on Mysterious Press in any week now. Darkly comic mystery set in LA in 94, in the fading golden age of the print porn world, kind of gone now. Booming new age spiritual industry, bunch of bullshitters, and Hollywood, always weird. Hi, David.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for doing it,
as
David.
always.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm honored.
Well, you're wearing a Karen Black shirt, so you're obviously a weirdo. We welcome that.
Yeah, exactly.
They go back. They go way back. They go way back.
Way back. Yeah, we have a lot of 1 degree of separation. I've been good friends with Richard Kern since I was like 17 as well.
Well, we just had Steve Doughton on, who's also been a good friend who I just was hanging out with in Portland. I just got back from Portland. I was showing my documentary, Artist Depression, Anxiety, and Rage, and then went to Seattle and cattle prodded 12 women onto the stage in a workshop on Fuck You Father's Day. Yeah, women's voices must be. You're right. How do you read? How do you get up on stage and just do it?
Wow,
I do that a lot. Yeah, cattle prod women up there because we need to do it. So anyway, welcome. And yeah, 1 degree of separation. We have it.
Well, let's cut to the chase. I mean, do you like to read your own work?
Me, I've gotten used to it. I mean, I feel
maybe
like
you need a workshop.
well, yeah. I mean, what kind of changed it all for me was one of the few jobs I could get was teaching. And before I started to publish my work, now I teach writing and literature and stuff, but I started out teaching like SAT classes and like grammar to high school kids in the summer. Like that's a tough crowd. You know what I mean? Like people who hate your guts and do not want to be there. And at this
point want to read tweets.
Yeah, they don't even want to read shit, It's like, and so like I would turn my back to write on the board and I'd hear like, and like I just learned that you just have to like dominate the room. Like I would just like eyeball them And because at first I would get so nervous, I remember I would sweat right through my clothes,
Oh,
you know, and I
terrible.
would smell worse than I did running in the park. And I realized like, oh, flop sweat is like a real thing. Like it's a different
Yep.
smell fear. And that's a tough crowd. So once I did that for a few years, then a bunch of snooty poetry lovers in Williamsburg don't scare
Yeah,
me.
no biggie. Well,
And then,
as I like to teach in my workshop, maybe the first time I was going to the stage with Teenage Jesus back in the day, I might have had a bit of nerves. I'm like, wait a minute, my job is to make them nervous.
right.
I was never nervous again 1 second in my life,
But
because first of all, especially if you're reading, you have the mic, and there's
right.
many ways to deal. So, where do you teach now?
I teach mostly at Pratt Institute here in Brooklyn and then various other scattered places. I think I'll be back up at Columbia in the fall doing a class, you know.
I'm waiting for the invitation. I'll come in. I'd love to come in.
Yeah.
They pay,
Kembra
I
taught up
play.
there
It's
for a
easy.
while.
What's
Kembra taught,
that?
Kembra taught up there for a little while too. Yeah.
What does she
She did.
teach?
I think performance
Okay.
or
Yeah,
something.
and she invited me into one of her classes, Kimbra Fowler, the Karen Black,
Yeah.
who that she could get a job teaching. Honey, move over. I'm coming up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you can. Yeah, I'm sure
Well,
you can.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes with a ruler, sometimes not. Depends.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to do what you got to do. But teaching is, I mean, now you're working with more progressed human beings than teenagers, but it still has to be harder in this day of people who grew up on the internet.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, especially with like the first year students, I mean, just getting people to like show up on time, to do their work on time, to not be staring at their phones. And yeah. And a lot of it for me is that they're like I want them to be present for each other. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting paid to be there. I don't take it personally one way or the
Yeah.
other, but I feel like they don't like they're not like there like in the room with each other. So
When
yeah.
when I did something at the University of New Mexico Albuquerque a few years ago, one of my friends' classes, I thought that class all had COVID brain. They
Yeah.
couldn't even tell me if they liked any music. Like they were
Yeah.
just vacancies, and I'm like, that's so sad because I remember how we were. Look, you grew up in New York. I ran away here as soon as I can, but reading was mandatory. I mean, we couldn't live without. It's what caused us to
Oh yeah,
write.
well, as you can see, this is all I have to show for my
Well,
my life.
Dave, let's connect these dots
Yeah.
because you're talking about COVID brain. There's also and then the internet brain.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's also internet porn brain versus
Yeah.
analog periodical porn brain,
Yeah.
which they both have their psychological things, but they're different. They have to be. They have to be. And you growing up in New York, I mean, did you just kind of just by being maybe liberated, maybe being in a progressive family or a progressive environment, you kind of stumbled into it? Or was this something you
Well, it was
pursued?
just everywhere. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
everywhere. I mean, I feel like really, like I remember driving with my dad, like little kid, driving with my dad. I think he was like I was going to work with him or something, and we were driving along the West Side Highway down by like the tunnel where they used to be like gathered around,
Hookers. Yeah.
and hookers were coming up to the cars
Yeah.
like and just rubbing their tits against the window. And my dad would just, you know how like when you're driving in the countryside and there's sheep in the way? My dad was like that. He was just honking, like, come on, come on, come on. Like he couldn't, totally unfazed, but yeah, and I think the first naked person I saw that wasn't, like a relative was like a woman opening her coat like on the street, like in
On the West Side Highway.
yeah, by the West Side Highway. And I remember, I would like at a certain point my family moved to Jersey, and so I would get stuck sometimes. Like I'd get stuck in Port Authority and I'd hang out on the Deuce all night and I would talk to the sex workers while they were taking breaks in Port Authority because it was cold. So they'd come into Port Authority to smoke cigarettes and stuff. And I would just be talking. I remember being like maybe 15 and they were saying, and I was like, why do you drink your beer through a straw? And they were like, oh, honey, so it doesn't fuck up our lipstick. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I think, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was just normalized that way, like you just,
Well, also sex was different before the internet
yeah,
in a way,
analog
and
sex
also,
too.
I mean, really, sex in general, pornography, and probably even prostitution, which under the right circumstances, which are rare, I think it can be a pretty equal exchange. Like
Right.
if you are both the pimp and the hoe.
Right,
Back in the day, it used to be a lot easier to do that.
But
right.
also,
If nothing was hanging over your head, that was like a drug addiction or a
No,
pimp.
well, I don't know
All of
what
us
to
worked in the sex and I don't know anybody who was around in the 70s that didn't do phone sex, street sex, pickpocketing, escort servicing, because
I remember once being like, this was actually like a little touching moment. Like I remember I was like, again, early teens, like
No
15,
pun intended.
and I was and I it was there was like some kind of drought going. It was really hard to find any weed in the city, and so I bought this like nickel bag on 11th Street behind St. Mark's Church, and I just sat down and ripped it open and put it in, and I was smoking it. And that was also there was like a stroll back there, right? Like there would always be hookers back there on 11th, like and like Second, and so but I didn't know that, and so what I thought was this like really beautiful older woman, like she was probably like 25, dressed sexy, came up
yeah,
to me and
hottie, hottie.
said, do you want a date with me? And I was like, yes. I was like, this is the greatest moment of my life. And then she was like, whatever it cost. She was like $50 or something. And I was so hurt. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, God, she liked
What were you doing besides scoring pot behind St. Mark's Church? You were still a teenager. Were you living in Jersey or were you living in New York then?
Let's see. I basically lived in Jersey high school years, but by then
Okay.
I was like I hated it. So I was almost like a commuter, you know, like I was a
Right.
kid. And so I was like back and forth, back and forth. And then
Sure. Because
from
even hanging,
seven,
look, you know what we used to do, and I'm sure you did it too, because I did it a lot when I first got to New York. We'd do a lot of stooping, which means
oh
sitting
yeah,
on the
yeah.
stoop and just whatever, waiting for something. I mean, because basically as a teenager, you're waiting for anything.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
do a
Something
lot of
along
stooping
anything.
all over all kinds of neighborhoods,
Totally.
just like sitting on the
Totally.
stoop.
And
What
I,
the
you
hell? And
know,
me,
and now
yep,
that
I
I'm a nerdy
do.
professor, I think that actually comes from like the days when this was New Amsterdam, because they don't call it stoop anyplace else. It's like steps, you know?
Stoop. Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, or yeah, no, what is the other name? Yeah, well, I call it stooping because you're waiting for what? Sitting
Yeah,
around.
exactly.
It
Yeah,
beats
yeah,
waiting
yeah.
around to die. I don't know. You're waiting
Wait,
around for
you're
life,
you're
actually.
you're in language. Is that where the word stupid came from?
That I don't know. That I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, a lot of sitting around, a lot of hanging out on benches all night long and just like in, you know, Tompkins Square Park or whatever.
Drinking a 40 or something. No, that was my teenage.
Smoking a
Drinking a
joint,
40.
selling drugs, buying drugs, waiting for
Uh,
a pretty older lady to go by just so you could, feel special.
hanging out on rooftops and yeah, yeah, that was it.
I mean, so
Rooftops.
I mean, another thing besides just how things have changed, internet, um, the service industry. So there's not an open air market. Everything is now delivered. Tourist industry, everything's delivered to you. It's not like it comes to you and you go to it in this open field of this open market. You have
Yeah.
to. There's
Well,
there's
now the open market is Tinder,
yeah,
Grinder,
exactly, right.
Yeah.
etc. So
Yeah, totally. Totally.
there's
Yeah.
that market as well,
I know.
and
Kids, they
you can
have no
find
idea,
anything you
right?
want on anything you want and a lot that you don't want on the internet.
Yeah,
So
sex, drugs. We had to go out and actually find it ourselves. Put your shoes
Do it
on,
ourselves, sell it
go out in the
ourselves,
snow.
we
procure it
are
ourselves.
we
Go to
are
the
going to get to your
complex.
books. We're going to get to your books. Since we're a little sensationalist.
Oh, whatever.
Ways.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
He lived
no,
it. He's
no,
here to
no.
tell it.
So what was the stepping stone? So you're surrounded by this kind of Wild West, almost
You know,
anarchy,
yeah.
New York, and then you get into writing and stuff. And then you're in LA or something.
What were you reading? Yeah. What
I
were
mean,
you reading?
I was just like one of these weird people who announced I was going to be like a writer in like second or third grade. And really, I mean, it took me decades to actually sell anything, but really never came up like that was it. Like I never wanted to be a fireman, never wanted to be a cop, you know. I thought like astronaut, writer, and criminal all seemed cool, you know,
And you're kind of a
and
combination
I
of
kind
and maybe
yeah,
a psychonaut.
and I kind of did all of them, but like, yeah. And so I don't know. I was just this really weird kid. I was like home writing poems when all my friends were like, you know, like I should have been smart, man. I should have learned to play bass and been in a fucking band. But instead, I just was like
No, you
writing
shouldn't.
stories, writing, you know, trying to write, you know, my friends would just be like, where's David? And be like, oh, he's home trying to write a book, you know, like it was just
It's the
this.
third grade. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and you know, so I mean, I read all kinds of stuff. I mean, of course, I read like, you know,
Classics. I
Kerouac
mean,
and Hubert Selby and all those things. But I was also so nerdy that even though I didn't understand it intellectually, I just loved like T.S. Eliot. I loved Shakespeare. Like I loved, like I could get the same way that you are with like music that's over your head, right? Like the same first time I heard Miles
Sure.
Davis, I was like, whatever that is, that's what I need, you know. And so you just, or you see art and you're like, fuck, I don't understand de Kooning, but I want, that's for me. So I was kind of like that. Like I just was into these books and I started
absorbing,
absorbing it
absorbing.
all. But I was very like literally in my, I can't remember if it was like grade school or what, or maybe middle school, but I remember like the little school library. There were all these books where I was the only one who'd ever signed them out, but there were also, I was banned from the library because I was like acting up and like knocking shit over and running around and vandalizing. So that was me. Like I was always just with the two groups of outsiders, the nerdy sort of like bookish
And
artsy
the rabble rousers.
and the like, yeah, and the delinquents. Those were always my two groups, you know.
Did you like vandalism as a
I
child?
loved it. Oh my God. And for a city kid, I mean, I know all of you who, I mean, I heard of, you know, yes, I was one of those kids who never saw a cow, didn't know that like a tree is just like a tree. Like I don't know anything about any of that. But man, if you want to get into some, like just living in tall buildings and throwing shit out the window, I would laugh so hard throwing eggs, toilet paper. One time, one of my genius friends, we like ran in and we got chocolate syrup and put that on the toilet paper and threw it out the window at some guy in a suit. And he was like, ah, like, you know, we got like, my friend got his older sister's like mom's tampons and we dumped it in ketchup and like whipped it out the window at somebody. And
Well,
then,
and it brings me back to a story of myself and Paul Zone in like 76, 77, riding around. And somehow we got this box of rotten cheese balls. Don't even ask.
oh
Well, you
my
know where
God,
they
yeah,
went. They went
yeah.
right out the window, right out
Or
the window.
or when the pooper scooper thing first started, when they passed that law in the city, like I was like, nobody thought through that it's all the 12-year-old boys who get sent out to walk the dogs. And now I'm holding a plastic bag full of hot dog shit in my hand. What do you think I'm doing with it? Boom, van, bus, car, you know, like so yeah, yeah, yeah. That really was one of my first thrills. And I would laugh so we would get chased by like cops and by people yelling. And sometimes I would laugh so hard that I was afraid I was going to get caught because I was just so,
Or pee your pants.
yeah, so happy. Like I was just so happy, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something about infrastructure and societal constructs that I mean I think a lot of us boys can relate to that. You just want to
And yeah, and I
fucking
think just the
destroy the
thrill
shit.
of that anarchy, of just that energy, right?
Yeah.
Like, just that like the same
Being
thing.
naughty. Being
Yeah,
naughty.
being naughty, and of course I love music, but like literally the first record I ever went out and bought with my own money was Richard Pryor, and I have no idea why. I think again, I just somehow was like little 8-year-old blonde me. I don't know what they thought in the record store. I was like, this motherfucker's funny. Like just the anarchy of that, right? Like something that expressed all that like
Did
energy and
you
emotion we all had.
had you heard Richard Pryor before
I
you bought
probably
it?
saw him on TV for like 5 minutes
Right,
or something.
right,
It
right,
was
right.
just like that, you know, love Lenny Bruce, love Marx Brothers, like all that stuff. I just was
Three
like,
Stooges
Three
speak about
Stooges, yeah,
violations of each other.
yeah, all
Well,
of
so
that
here's a
stuff.
question for both of you because actually I've never even heard Lydia's opinion on this. What did you think of Benny Hill?
Nah,
Oh,
not for me, too silly.
I was more
Yeah.
into Monty Python, but
Oh,
that
sure, that's smarter,
thing
right? That's smarter,
because
right?
all those shows were on like these kind of off-brand times and stations.
Totally, totally.
And so I remember, like, I think like everybody else I knew was watching. I think the big hit at that time was Little House on the Prairie, and I
Ugh.
was like in the like bed in my like parents' bedroom with a little black and white TV watching Monty Python, and just being like, "Oh my God, who are the like? What is this?" You know?
What did
And
you?
not only the accent, but the action and the comedy. You only understand so much at that
Oh
age,
yeah.
but you know you got to watch it.
No, you know it. Same thing. Like, I mean, you know, and obviously I was like a city kid, but I was innocent. I didn't understand what fucking Richard Pryor was talking about, but I knew it was good. You know what I mean? Like, I knew it was funny. Like, I knew this was like for me, you know?
What about like weird UHF stations or cable or Manhattan cable access? Did you
I
dive
remember
into?
that. We didn't have cable in my house, but I remember being at friends' houses and watching like Channel J and all those talk shows and Robin Bird. And you know, I mean, you could kind of just like wander into those places back then, you
Yeah,
know? because they didn't have like door guys like they have now. Like if I tried to order a drink at the bar, they would card me and be like, "Get the fuck out of here, kid." But you could kind of you could wander into
Ask
a hospital.
everybody who was around in that time, and none of us know. We all got in. We got in for free. We were drinking. It was just they wanted the young hotties.
Yeah, you could wander into you could like wander into a strip club and stand in the corner and nobody would really notice or say anything unless you actually tried to like
Right.
interact and then they'd be like or the one friend who was of age would go and order the drinks if you stayed at like a
Yeah.
table. So yeah, like a lot of that stuff I saw and a lot of that I remember Midnight Blue I loved,
Of
remember?
course.
That was amazing and the Robin Bird show. Remember that
Well,
guy?
so go ahead.
Ugly,
Okay.
what was his name? He would go around with an old time video camera and talk women into stripping for him in like phone booths and doorways. I don't know. Yeah.
So is that how you then got into writing for adult magazines back in the day when actually some of them, at least Hustler, meant something
Well,
with their to me because he did take a bullet for freedom of
oh
expression.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was the real deal. I mean, that's what people would when people say like what was it like working there? I was like it was like working for on like a pirate ship, basically, like a pirate ship moored off the coast of America, and yeah, I mean, really, this was quite a bit later. Like by that point, I was living in LA. I was trying to be a screenwriter. I was just hustling, doing all kinds of jobs.
The
And then
hustler
it was,
goes to hustler.
yeah, and then I was really broke one day, and maybe you know him. Do you know Alan McDonnell, who used to work there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was good friends with Alan, and he said, "Well, why don't you just write something freelance for Barely Legal?" And so I wrote a guide for girls who want to date criminals, and it gave like the pros and cons of like car thief, drug dealer, pimp, and that went well. And I think I wrote another story for Chic called Pussy Bandit, where it was about this girl whose like vaginal muscles were so tight that she could steal jewelry and stuff. And
Well,
then
I have
that got me a job and they hired me on full time and I was in the LFP headquarters there in Beverly Hills just in some ways, by my standards, it was almost like the squarest job I'd ever had because you had to wear a tie. I had to be there at 9 a.m. I couldn't just wander out. Like I got in trouble because I would finish my work and just want to leave. And they'd be like, no, it's an office. You gotta so it was,
let's remember this. I mean, it was Larry Flint that used to pay to get the dirt, real dirt, on a
oh, the
lot of
real dirt,
politicians.
the
And I mean,
real
he
dirt.
would uncover both, Christian
That's what a
cultists,
lot of this is
politicians.
about. Not directly, but that's what I used to sort of make the plot. And he would have the stuff that he would publish. Like we got I forget who it was, but we got a Republican congressman to resign because he put a bounty out, and I think she was a sex worker, came forward and set up this guy who was one of her clients, and he ended up resigning. And yeah, all that was totally legit. And even the ones that later went big, like what's her name and the guy from
Gary Hart.
no, like the one who where they were on the boat and it was like the rocker dude, the guy from Motley Crue and
Tommy Lee.
Anderson and her boyfriend. Like we would just see all that stuff like months before it would break, and we would decide if we wanted to buy it. And there were also would be like I mean I put this in the book too, fictionalized, but there was like one time we were trying to get we had this videotape of an evangelist, like some big born again evangelist in like a group sex party. And it was clear
Most of them
then,
do.
but the video was so bad, it was old time like VHS video that our lawyer like that was the other thing. Everything would like run through the lawyer, right? And he would be like, "All right, if you get arrested, I can defend you with this. And if that doesn't work, I'll do this." But then there'd be other things where he would be like, "Don't do that because if
Yeah,
you do
that's
that,
good to know.
you're on your own." And so we got this. Apparently, your ear lobes are as individual as your fingerprints.
Oh,
And so we
interesting.
got this like ear expert to come in and we had blow-ups of this guy's ears. And we were like, "Would you testify that it's him?" And he said, "No, it's not. It's too grainy." So even though like you could look at the video and be like, "Oh yeah, that's him," we ended up passing
Yeah,
on.
couldn't do it.
And
Well,
then
I have
there's
to
the
say,
stuff
yeah,
that, and then there's the stuff that Larry bought and supposedly just put in the vault. And a lot of the rumors were that that's why certain super powerful people never really went too far with him because he had the goods on everybody.
Of
And
course he did. Well,
yeah.
I mean, Huss, I was Alan again, McDonald, who heard me do a reading, my piece about Dominic Strauss-Kahn, that cunt, where I wish I was the maid walking into it.
Right. That's fairly
And they
recent.
published it with pictures of Dominic Strauss-Kahn and did a really good job of publishing it. Uh, that
Yeah,
was that.
yeah, we did a great thing too where we stuck up for that guy Daniel LePew, what was his name, who was like railroaded, like basically he was having like internet sex with FBI agents who were pretending to be like gay men, and they like one of the good things about being the absolute bottom is we didn't really have anything to prove. We had like no reputation that
Well, Lydia says that. She says, you can't cancel me.
right.
She,
Yeah. Like this is way before that term even existed. But what are you going to say? We're already, and literally, I mean, my floor was like swipe card. Like you had to like get through security because we called it the death threat floor, right? Like we would be getting like death
yeah.
threats all the time, mail, and I would read the mail and I would publish, sometimes I would publish the hate mail and then yell back at them. Like, but we would get like every week we'd get mail like hope you get AIDS, you know,
Oh, yeah, of course.
piece of Jew,
Just,
you Jew bastard, all that kind of stuff. And like, yeah.
well, why doesn't that bring us up to a piece of your new book and a little reading from that, since it seems like a good intro
All right,
to.
this is my first time reading out loud from this. So I actually will read a part from the beginning that's actually right when oh boy, I better put glasses on.
Go ahead.
Uh
And this is from your new Behind Sunset coming out
Behind
in July
Sunset.
on Mysterious Press.
Here it is. So this is a scene where he actually is just in his office. Uh,
Okay.
His duties at Raunchy were several and included editing, journalism, and fiction writing, often all at the same time. Under an assortment of pseudonyms, he would write an article on, say, how to spot a nympho, fill it with expert medical quotes and statistics drawn from his own aching head. A nympho will sleep with anyone. A slut will sleep with anyone but you. Write the cover lines hyping it, then edit and respond to the letters attacking it. In one case, promising an irate reader that he would fire himself. He also wrote his own letters, scorching confessions of debauchery attributed to some Suzanne or Collie or Jill, then answered the mail the girls received from eager suitors. Mostly men in uniform, soldiers, sailors, convicts, and the occasional janitor. But the heart of his work, the lifeblood of the magazine, was the girl copy. These little soliloquies that accompanied the photos, the fake names and ridiculous personalities he invented each month were, he was told, why men bought the magazine. Eliot found it hard to believe. Text seemed entirely superfluous, and he was sure you could reprint the phone book next to an open crotch shot and sell just as many copies. But the mail proved him wrong. If Eliot said that a moon-faced blonde diddling herself in a VW microbus was a flower child who adored Jerry Garcia, some old freak wrote in claiming to be a dead ringer for the bearded fat man. If he had a single mom with 3 kids and fake pointy nails call herself a hungry cougar, a whole frat house volunteered to be her prey. It seemed that they weren't buying sex after all. They were buying desire, the chance to fantasize, and Eliot's overheated brain was the sweatshop that provided the dreams. Even more astounding to Eliot than the men slathering over the make believe women were the scores of eager real life women begging for a chance to become make believe. Each issue contained amateur photos sent in by ordinary women in polyester lingerie, with framed photos of the kids visible on the wall in the background, posed on water beds with whiskey bottle collections on the shelves, or proudly displayed atop a bright red Camaro. Eliot spent many hours with his nose inches from these Polaroids and blurry snapshots, reading the questionnaires the contestants filled out and spotting through his magnifying glass the objects in their homes and trailers, the Jesus posters and world's best mom mugs, the self-help books and Marilyn Manson CDs. Many were strippers from Lubbock or Cincinnati or Myrtle Beach hoping for an as seen in raunchy boost to their resumes, and some were hopelessly reckless party girls headed straight for rehab or prison. Like Deanie, an 18-year-old dropout captured butt naked on the kitchen table with a homemade tattoo on her leg that read beer in a first grader's slanted scrawl. but most were regular folks, secretaries, dental hygienists, waitresses, and warehouse workers with husbands and kids. Maybe if you spent all day separating chicken parts or answering 411 calls, spreading your legs for the world felt like freedom and empowerment. The most popular fantasies were lesbianism, being the star of a gangbang, or having sex in the rain. And the number one hobby was writing poetry. That had once been Eliot's hobby too. Of course, these were Eliot's relatively normal readers. Every morning's mail delivered smeared, scrawled, misspelled pleas and provocations from the insane, the perverse, and the moronic. Dear Raunchy, I am a virgin, 45 years old, who loves to masturbate outdoors. I am very excited that there are girls like Brittany in your June issue who like to have sex in cars, buses, elevators, and playgrounds. I would definitely subscribe to your fine magazine, but my mother won't allow it. Dear Raunchy, as a natural, pure Aryan racialist, I was disgusted by that race traitor Chrissy. Chrissy, Buck, and Larry, too black, too strong, too long. That slut deserves to die of AIDS, and so do you for printing it, you Jew bastard. Dear Raunchy, thank you for the hot, hot three-way with Chrissy. She's almost as hot as my wife. Do you know if those two studs could do her? She and me would both really appreciate it. To the editor, Jesus tries to break into my house every night. He can make himself small to crawl in the drain or huge to crush me in his giant hand. Insane Catholic cannibal, eat the flesh of and drink the blood of God. My doctor said if I wrote you any more letters, he would put me away. Dear editor, sir, I am wrongly incarcerated for a crime I did not commit. Can you help me to get a new lawyer and send me some free magazines? So yeah, those are pretty much real letters.
And that's real letters.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, by memory, but yeah.
Of course, yeah. I had a column once online a while ago called Tough Love, which was, I wrote the questions and the answers. And the only one I can really remember is, dear, I have to ask, will I get salmonella poisoning? Because I'm hosting a Thanksgiving dinner, but I want to fuck the turkey first. I'm like, oh, come on now.
You thought of that question yourself and then answered it.
Of course I did.
I did a porn star advice column for a while, and it was one of those things where they were like, you got to think of a name for this column. You can't leave the office, and I was like, I got to get home. And so in desperation, what I came up with was Dear Slut. and then I had to call and tell everybody, all right, you're going to be Dear Slut, but yeah. But those were real questions that people sent in. A lot of it was how to get my girlfriend to have a three-way.
Yeah.
Anal sex questions. Those were the two biggest. Yeah.
Was there because we're all open-minded here. Did you feel like psychologically you had to disassociate every time you stepped into that world, or were you kind of seamlessly kind of just living that reality?
I think I feel like I was hired because of my twisted mind. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I came sort of like, that's why they knew I could do this job. And actually they even had like an HR psych evaluation because, I mean, you may not know this, Tim, Lydia, of course, like this was like a huge corporation, right? Like Larry owned hundreds of magazines,
yeah.
very square, straight magazines. So they actually had like HR and they gave me a psych evaluation and the woman said, all right, well, it says that you resent all authority and try to strive to dominate every situation you're in. And I was like, oh God, you're basically telling me I'm a terrible employee. And then Alan was like, yeah, I knew that. That's why you're hired, And so in a way, I feel like you wanted the person but you didn't want like the frat boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
of course,
the person who was like, hey, fucking tits. So you needed the person who had these thoughts, but then was also like, oh my God, I can't believe
able to go home and make a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like, I mean, I kind of feel like it was almost like id training. Like I really had to just think of whatever was in there, and obviously sexual stuff, but also everything, especially back in those days, like, jokes about whatever, disabled people, racial,
anything went.
Any horrible thing that popped into your head, I had to just like say it. And usually what I would do is I would not, you're right, like I wouldn't sit there and think, oh, this is going to give some guy in prison a hard on because that's a little depressing. I would sit there and I would think, if I come up with something that makes my coworkers laugh, then I know I've scored,
Right.
because we're all so desensitized and jaded that if I think of something where the other people in the office are like, "Oh God, David,"
But
like,
there's also like there's a subtext, just like a comedian. Two people can say the same joke, and one comes across as misogynist and a
yeah,
bigot, and the
yeah,
other person doesn't. And you're
yeah,
talking about just like the frat boys being not allowed inside.
right,
They can say
right.
the same thing, but they're fucking like they
You
hate
need
women
that
or something.
ambivalence. You need that ambivalence. We are a
Right.
little like, I can't believe I
But
just thought that.
it brings me to one of the most controversial covers of any magazine ever, which I think speaks out of both sides of its page, which is the woman in the meat grinder,
Oh yeah, the meat grinder.
which
Yeah,
I thought was both highly misogynist and highly feminist at the same time, because it's like,
totally,
yeah,
totally.
motherfuckers, that's what you think.
And
I thought it was really absolutely, it hit both nails on the head.
yeah, and there
One
would be
hammer.
times
I mean,
where like the religious right and Gloria Steinem both hated us, and I would be like, well, I guess, does that mean we're doing a good job? Because just like everybody's upset, like everybody's like, so
and
yeah,
again, he did take the bullet for freedom, and it was different times, but and people can decide what they want about what it meant. But the thing is, I'm not saying it was all inclusive, but it stretched the boundaries.
totally. And I honestly, I think I think ultimately his ultimate, whatever you want to call it, like kink, was fighting. You know what I mean? Like that was the
Yeah.
thing. Like he had unlimited funds and he would fight forever. And so he was willing to kind of take the hits, We could use
Yeah.
a few more billionaires on
Yeah,
that
but
side
so
of
David,
things.
it's kind of it's David. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking right now, and you're talking about Gloria Steinem and the Christian right. Now, pornography is more extreme than ever, yet people are more uptight than ever.
Yeah,
So it's like people are so offended by everything,
yeah.
yet the access to the most extreme imagery
This,
and whatever
this,
is insane.
It's
this is
very
the
weird. Like,
this is the divide we cannot comprehend, because it is so extreme at either end. And
totally.
I don't even I'm not I'm not necessarily searching for the happy middle, but I see that it just goes from the new puritanism to outrageous. It's things that I don't even want to think about.
Oh yeah, no, no, definitely. And even just working, I mean, I saw a lot of things I can't unsee. Like even just the
Sure.
things that got sent into us that we didn't buy, but we'd have to like put that tape in and be like, "Oh my God, is that whatever it is, a
Well,
donkey?"
and again, still then as now, it's like on many tables, sex, no matter how benign or how brutal, is far more insulting to their supposedly to their psyche than a movie that has like 300 people getting blown up, or the fact that we're killing
Totally,
thousands of people every day,
totally.
incarcerating them every day,
No, like
bombing people. There are 132 million refugees. I mean, a sex, no matter what you like or don't like, whatever is out there or you can imagine, is far more disturbing to some people than the fact that
totally,
we are a homicidal, genocidal nation, rife with serial killers, political corruption, kleptocrats, filthy Christian pedophiles, and violent extremists of all nature. So, and
totally.
I mean,
Like,
sex is still the dividing line in a lot of things. I mean, if you want it and you find somebody that wants it, yeah, fucking do it. I don't have to see it, but if you invite me, I might. You never know.
yeah. No, I remember thinking like even although I understand what it's supposed to mean, like over 18, even the term adult is so it says so much about our society that we don't think of adult as like for smart people. We don't think of adult as like, oh, it's too violent. We think of when we talk about adult entertainment, we mean sex and that's it.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I
that's
mean?
it.
Like,
Not violence, not
yeah, not
rated.
violence, not we're not like,
No,
oh, this is smart. Like, like in my mind, this is for adults, right? Because it's
no.
like complicated and it's kind of dark and parts are
Well,
funny.
I mean, we've never done it
Kids
before, but
shouldn't read it,
we might put a parental warning
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
podcast, just because you know I like it for this reason. I debated Tipper Gore's best buddy, who insisted on record labeling on records. I
Oh
debated
wow.
him,
Yeah.
Jack Thompson, and my theory was, look, Two Live Crew. I'm like, this is so stupid, and you think that
Yeah,
it's really instrumental. I'm like, let's go back to Greek tragedy. Let's go back to the Bible. And you know
I
what?
know.
This
I
is a
know.
symptom of what society is. Leave it. I mean, he did not win that debate, let's face it. But
Yeah.
I'm not even against record labeling or movie labeling,
Yeah.
because, it doesn't matter to me. So, but on this, I mean, on my documentary about artists and depression, we have a warning, because people are speaking about real shit that has made them depressed, like abuse, like incest, like poverty, like bullyism, etc.
Yes, totally.
Well, what year was Larry Flint shot? That was like
I got to tell you, any questions for me that involve math or numbers or time?
No, I'm just kind of curious.
I think it was probably like late 80s. Does that sound right?
So what was the security? I mean, after that's a game changer.
Serious, like bodyguards with like bulges for their guns. Yeah. No, it was hardcore, and you were very aware of it. Like totally. I felt safe, but like you were very aware that this person really was like. Like the car would roll up and the bodyguards would get out and they'd wheel him in the gold wheelchair. And if he was coming through the office, first of all, you knew it was him because he would smoke cigars because he owned the building. So no one was going to tell him don't smoke. And
I can tell you when he was shot. He was shot in 1978 in Lawrenceville, Georgia, while leaving a county courthouse where he was facing obscenity charges.
Yeah.
So I guess all right. So he has all these bodyguards. Blah blah blah. He's dealing with this, and I assume people are like, well, I'm going to finish you off. You continue to get these death threats the whole time. And was anyone ever like stalkers
arrested or anything like that? Like I remember one time there was this. There was like a. There was a magazine also on our floor that was a rap magazine that also got a lot of death threats. And one time the death threat, there was this like gangster rap guy, like literally again, another criminal genius, left a death threat on the voicemail. And the guy, the editor of that magazine was this guy named Alan Gordon. So my joke was that I was like, I hope the hitman has the description right. I was telling him because he's going to come in and find a skinny white guy and be like, Gordon, I don't know, but
seriously,
and so, but I remember saying like, I don't think this guy knows that we already work for a gangster, right? Like he's like,
okay, let's go back in time for a minute. So you're doing whatever you can to get by. You want to write, and then your first book is a freaking hit. It won all these awards. It's published in Japan, first of all. I mean, like you go from zero. You go from 0 to 100.
Well, sort of, because I went to 100 in Japan, and in America, I was still like 25. Like that was like
understandable. But you won 3 major literary awards, and you've been published in many different languages. Incredible that is Russian and Turkish, because my book Paradoxia too. But they could shut that down at any time. I'm glad they don't know about it.
Totally.
And then how did you get David Hasselhoff to do the comic spy novel audiobook?
That was actually...
By the way, I'll do your next audiobook if you want.
Yeah, well, this was actually a guy I know named Andrew at
Audible?
Right, came to me. And I guess you guys know that, because actually it's more of a music business thing, that David Hasselhoff is like a huge star in Germany, right?
Yeah.
Like musical
and
stuff.
We don't know why.
Yes. He outsold Michael Jackson in Germany, right? Yeah. And so the idea was that they came to me with this idea that I would write a book about how, and they got him to sing on the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, talk about freedom. It's called Talk About Freedom.
Yeah,
and you're not even embarrassed about this.
No, and so they had this idea that so I wrote this fake, like comical, it's like airplane kind of humor. So I wrote this comical spy novel.
And loves that shit.
About how David Hasselhoff was really a spy working behind the scenes to bring down communism. And he rated it. He actually read it. And the joke is that it's presented as if it's like his true story. And some people fell for it and really were like, oh my God, he wrote this, and I mean, Hasselhoff always gave me credit. He always said like, oh, my friend.
I mean, and it's another wild fluke.
Totally, total fluke. My whole life is full of these weird flukes. Like when the Japan thing happened, all my friends were like literally, I took the subway to JFK by myself to fly to Japan. Like even my family didn't give me a lift. And then when I landed in Tokyo, there was a TV crew waiting to meet me because I was so famous, and
They gave you the red carpet. Yeah.
going by on buses. Like people in Tokyo would be like, "Why are you here?" And I'd point at like the poster going by on the bus of my movie and be like, "Yeah, that's me." It was crazy. And then I
And
came
then you
back
come
here.
back here and it's nothing,
Yeah, New
flatlining.
York doesn't give a shit. Like
No,
my
but
friends were calling me Sugar Man. They're like, "You're like Sugar Man." Remember that guy who was like a
Yes,
janitor
yes.
in the U.S. and a star in like
Sorry,
and
South
what year was that?
Africa.
What year was that you went to Japan?
Well, the book came out. The book came out in uh 1999, I think, but the Japan stuff blew up a few years later because
Okay.
it got to get translated, and then they made the
Made
movie,
a movie. They made a
and
movie.
that
Yeah.
really like took it to the next level. And then it got picked up in the press, and I wrote a piece about it for New York Times about this whole experience.
That was hilarious. I did
And then
read
it
it.
kept
Yeah.
getting exaggerated, where, like the really crappy ones, like Daily Mail. I ended up becoming
Yeah.
friends with the girl who wrote this. Like they kept making it worse and worse. So by the time it got to the Daily Mail, they were like, he's a homeless bum in New York and a billionaire super pop
By the way,
star
I
in
love the
Japan.
Daily Mail because mainly for their photographs or
Yeah.
science stuff, and the rest is just gossip. I just scroll through it, but I'm kind of addicted to it because it's like it has to balance out the rest of the really hard
So it
fucking real
is.
news.
Yeah, it is really cool to be cool in Japan because let's face it, they're like the coolest. So I do feel like it's a special honor that like Japan, has given me a big
When was
thumbs.
the last time you were there?
Not in a little while, because as I keep saying to people, because at first people were like, "Why aren't you just living in Tokyo?" I'm like, "Easy.
No,
I wrote a
can't
book.
afford
I
it.
wrote a book." It's like I mean, Japan's not, first of all, it's not like having a bestseller in the US, right? Like it's a smaller world, and I'm a writer. So, I mean, I couldn't like here, I mean, I can teach, I can do other things to
Yeah.
make money, but in Japan, I would just be like, a
That
novelist.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and so really, I mean, it was the movie people who really like flew me over and paid for my hotel and all that. But yeah, I signed a ton of books. It was a crazy experience. Like people were
So
like,
now, okay, so now your book is coming out. What are you doing to promote it? Because you know what? I mean, people like Jerry
"Talking to
Stahl,
you."
even Hubert Selby. Yeah, exactly. Well, what I'm saying is Hubert Selby, Jerry Stahl, bookstores are kind of bullshit. You don't get any money for that. And I'm the first one that took them actually on paid tours because I think that you're right. You should be paid. And if you're waiting for a
Yeah,
royalty check,
yeah.
good
I knew
fucking
Cubby when
luck.
I lived in LA. I would see Cubby around. Yeah, what a great guy. Yeah.
It was my favorite thing he ever said to me is, "You're rotten, kid. You're rotten." I'm like, "Thank you very much." So, I mean, you got to do readings where you get paid, and there are places we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
doing
I'd be
something
happy to. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm doing all the like, I mean, the mystery.
press that you can.
Yeah, and I mean the mystery world has its own very nerdy, inner world, and my first two reviews are good ones. One of them, Kirkus said, "Hard-boiled Hollywood as only a New Yorker can
Great.
write it." That's pretty good, right? And
That's
then
really good.
and then the one I got just came out today said something like a dark odyssey into the porn world or whatever. So my publishers are very connected with that world. And then I'm trying to just do whatever I can to reach out into all these other worlds that I'm connected to, like Tim, right? Like who I know from being like a jazz nerd or whatever. And I don't know, do you know those kids who do like Dirty Magazine and Petite Mort and all that?
I
They're
don't
like
know them, no, but
they were like
go ahead.
another generation of like
Great.
super kind of pro porn, pro sex workers' rights, queer, like putting out like a magazine, like a print newspaper. So I knew a couple of them just through friends, and then I said, "Look, I got this book coming in." I actually sent them a scan of my old Hustler business
Oh,
card,
nice.
and they were like, "Holy shit!" So I'm gonna probably do some events with them to try to like reach that
Yeah,
more like
absolutely.
social media savvy world and whatever. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm old media. Like I'm like, look, I sit in a room full of books and like write
I,
novels. Like, I'm like
I
way
know
behind the
I know what
media.
you're talking about. I know what
Dave,
you're
Dave,
talking about.
I want to touch on this real quickly. Because I know you, I don't know if you had an alias, you had like a pen name for, but you wrote some of those like grocery store romance novels too, right?
No.
No,
Well,
why did I
that.
think that? Someone,
I
I think
think that, well,
no.
part in the Serialist, right? In the Serialist, I have the character. that book is about this guy who writes like 7 or 8 different novel series under different names, right? So
Okay.
porn,
I'm
sci-fi.
sorry. So maybe I had a conversation with you that you knew so much about this that I
Yeah,
thought maybe
maybe.
you had insight to how
Right.
that
And
was
then
run.
the idea of that book is that this famous serial killer on death row turns out to be a fan of one of his aliases. So he gets involved with this guy. But but no, I never did that. I did try and sell a vampire book during the heyday of that. And they first rejected me because they said it had to be from like a female point of view.
Oh,
And so I was like, all right, I'll rewrite it from a female point of view and use my mom's name. And so then I wrote it, and they said it was now such a convincing, like, it was like fashion vampires, right? It's a good idea, right? Models, they don't have to eat, they only go out at night, they never get old. And then they said this, it's such a convincing 18-year-old girl that now all of the sex and violence is sort of creepy. So can you rewrite it again as like YA?
oh, you know what? No,
It was just like,
can't.
forget it, forget it.
Can't do it. No, can't do it.
But
How
yeah.
about another piece from whatever you want to read right now? Because right after you, we got something else to do because
All
that's the
right, all
way we
right.
do.
So here's another. So basically, what ends up happening in terms of the story is he gets sent out to find this like missing porn star who is going to be on the cover, and it pulls him into this like underworld. So he's gotten a tip. He thinks that she might be doing a movie in the valley, so he drives out there to check it out. He's looking for this woman named Crystal Waters. He parked behind a line of cars at the end of a long driveway before hiking up to the house and following the bundled power cords through the unfurnished rooms. It was like a stage set of a mansion, huge and elaborate, but built of only the shoddiest, most temporary materials by the worst artisans with the least care. Concrete poured into the mold of a crumbling chateau, hollow columns, fiberglass stonework, and granite counters already chipping to reveal they were just veneers, handed off between actors and singers as they passed through the spotlight on their way to oblivion. It was rented out between times for low-end film shoots, commercials, rock videos, and of course, porn. 2 naked men were chatting in the kitchen, snacking on chips and hummus. One was tall and bony, wearing only black dress socks and tassel loafers. His penis poked its pink nose from a thick black thatch like a mouse sniffing the breeze from its lair. The other, squatter man, had his back to Elliot. He was both bald and hairy, the growth beginning at the nape of his neck and spreading to his shoulders, then deepening into a carpet as it marched toward the dense and fertile valley of his buttocks. The tall man made a joke, and the hairy guy's buttocks shook with laughter, rippling on the bone. Elliot moved on quickly. He passed another naked man in the hallway, bending over to tie his shoe. Elliot kept staring straight ahead, moving fast and pretending he saw nothing, as if walking through a haunted house on a dare. Then he found the backyard. He'd never seen this many naked bodies in one place before. Almost all were male, drinking beer and snapping photos of one another. Many had brought video box covers and magazines, souvenirs they wanted autographed. One held a bouquet of roses. Elliot found his eyes drawn, not as he'd feared to the genitals, but to the ludicrous footwear, the knee-high athletic socks and Nike sneakers and hiking boots. Elliot spotted the lady of the hour, posing for pre-game publicity shots. Dressed only in high heels, she was held in the air by 4 fans, spread lengthwise as if on a chaise lounge. Then she squatted and grabbed 2 by the balls, smiling for the camera. Meanwhile, the crew, easily identified by their clothes, were busy setting up video cameras around the raised mattress where the main event would take place. Men began to line up, and the fluffers, a pudgy, multi-pierced and tattooed Asian girl and a crack-thin blondie with enormous scarred implants, got to work, livening up the crowd. Pushing his way ahead, uh, Buck led Elliot over to where his wife was lying on the mattress and smoking a cigarette. She was not Crystal Waters, right? So it's not the girl he wants, but now he's watching this gangbang video. He's sort of stuck there. By 4, the wind descended, lifting paper plates and napkins from the snack table and chasing them over the lawn. A plastic bag jumped and swam in the heat like a manta ray brushing the surface. A van load of Japanese businessmen disembarked. They were on a worldwide sex tour and had already visited Bangkok, Amsterdam, and Las Vegas. After this, they were off to Costa Rica for virgins. As their tour leader's instruction, They promptly stripped down and lined up, smiling and nodding through the grumbles from the American men already in line. A brief argument ensued about their cameras. The director objected to video, and Crystal, bleary and semi-coherent, demanded extra money for still photos. Finally, they struck a bargain. No video and $10 for a photo with the star propped up with a smiling tourist's head hugged to each breast. The other men laughed approvingly at this, and the air of good-natured camaraderie was restored. Next, a fraternity from USLA showed up, 10 guys in 2 cars, dressed in team shirts and sports sunglasses held on with stretchy cords, hooting and carrying cases of beer. One over-eager college boy, still halfway back on the line, lost control and squirted semen onto the next fellow's leg. There was a scuffle as the soiled victim shoved him and began to throw punches, knocking him down. "Homo!" yelled the angry naked man, clad only in Air Jordans and a Yankees hat. He tried to slip it in from behind. He kicked the crawling man in the butt. The fallen man's frat brothers came to his aid, and a brawl began to develop. The security guards dove in and broke it up. Meanwhile, beer cans and condoms piled up around Crystal, who was soldiering forward on all fours. The sun drenched everything in migraine colors, and men stumbled around blindly behind mirrored glasses. Leaves shook free from an avocado tree and flew. One slid all the way across the pool, trailing its shadow on the bottom. Stumbling away from the mattress, men stripped off their condoms and went to piss on the avocado tree, then grabbed a fresh beer and got back in line. A crew member in gloves moved in to wipe Crystal down with a towel, and the makeup artist cleaned up her face. Her eyeline was smeared, darkening her cheeks like a battered boxer's. Her lipstick bled out, blooming over her wounded mouth and chin, as if someone had been stuffing roses down her throat. Sweat glittered on her skin. Her body glowed. She raised her arms, lifting her head like she had something important to say. "Lube," she called out plaintively. "Bring me the fucking lube." There you go.
That was and
Oh,
is
boy.
David Gordon reading from his new novel out in a few weeks on Mysterious Press called Behind Sunset. And in spite of that salacious, he's also written for Harper's Paris Review, the New York Times, not this kind of stuff, however, the
No.
New York Times Book Review, etc. And it sounds like a good time in old Hollywood circa 1994 when print porn still existed and New Age spirituality was still to be laughed at. And thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor.